Hey, it's me, Mandy, with the long promised overview of my most important, iconic, inspirational collection of stories I've got in my comic collection. And that's the complete works of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. I did have the comic when it originally came out in the 80s. So, again, that's another factor. I mean, that's one perk of being an old fart like I am, is that I managed to be on board when all these um, landmark comic series came out in the 80s. But sold the comics long ago, and I've had numerous incarnations of trade paperback versions of them. Titan years ago did a black and white version, which was really good actually, because it really made the artwork pop, just being in pure black and white. But this is the most recent iteration of the trade paperbacks. It comes in a really nice, sturdy slipcase, and it comes in 6 volumes, and it's by Alan Moore, and the predominant artists are Steve Bissett, John Sossaburn, and later on Rick Veitch, Sean McManus, and Alfredo Alcala, or however he pronounces his work name. So yeah, so Swamp Thing started out in the late 1983. This is book one. So it's got, yeah, it says on the back here, from 1983 through to 1987, a young British writer named Alan Moore revolutionised the American comic book with his groundbreaking tenure on DC Comics' Swamp Thing. And yeah, I mean, this set the stage um, for the British invasion of Grant Morrison, Pete Milligan, Garth Ennis, you name it. But yeah, he was basically the first one that DC scalped from 2000 AD, and as a Warrior. I mean, I was a big fan of Alan Moore before he moved on to Swamp Thing. I used to get the Warrior comic, which is a black and white comic, and it had strips in it such as V for Vendetta, and of course Marvel Man, what became Miracle Man. And Marvel got a bit pissy about the Marvel name being used, even though I think it's childish of them. So let's crack on and look into the first book. So yeah, so as it says here, it's written by Alan Moore, on the arts provided by Steve Bissett, John Sossaburn, Dan Day. I think he's unfortunately passed away now, and Rick Veitch. And these are all artists who are more on the underground scene. It's got a really nice introduction as well. I love reading the introductions by Len Wein, who was the original creator of Swamp Thing, and he's basically just giving his confirmation of his seal of approval of Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing. And a really fun forward by Ramsey Campbell, who's one of Britain's best horror writers. British writers just seem to get horror better than majority of American ones. I love Stephen King, but the Americans always go schmaltzy. Something about the waters in Britain is that we don't. We keep it quite grim and gritty and hard edged. But this is the first page of the first story of Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, and it's loose ends, and it's basically just tying up all what's gone before. I think it was Martin Pascoe who was writing it before him. I remember having a few of those as well. Swamp Thing was always on my radar, even because they did a reprint of the 70s stuff. So I was aware of people like Bernie Wrightson, but I was a bit too young at the time to appreciate Swamp Thing. But when this came out, I was about 13, 14. So I was ready for some good meaty horror. So yeah, the first story just kind of like I said, ties up all the loose ends, but it set the scene as well for how high quality the artwork was going to be, and that's what made me come back for the next issue. And this was the one that really launched the whole new iteration of Swamp Thing, and it's the Anatomy Lesson. Such a brilliant atmospheric read. And what I love is how he managed to change a very Z-list villain like the Floronic Man into something really sinister and really evil. And it's just great story, and I love how he changed the. I mean that's just amazing. That picture of Florida Man. I love how he changed the whole. Like I said, it's the anatomy lesson. He revamped what Swamp Thing was. He wasn't Alec Holland, but I won't say anymore because if you've not read it, I don't want to ruin it. But Swamp Thing's amazing. It's just it's a love letter to horror, to the old EC comics, to Hammer horror, to The Exorcist. All the classic horror tropes are on display here, but done in a very distinct, unique, and nice bits of body horror. So there's touches of like Cronenberg in here as well, but it's very much in his own flavour. Nobody else but Alan Moore could write this story. No words wasted. Yeah, there's a lot of speech bubbles, but it doesn't feel like it. Like when you're reading Chris Claremont on the X-Men, it's a slog because he writes things what doesn't need to be there. You know, you could take an eraser and get rid of like half his speech bubbles, and you'd have a good story. But your mind just kind of like blurs out the flabby speech what he puts in it. Whereas Alan Moore, nothing is wasted. Each word is essential, and the art ties in with it. Now there has been an absolute edition, which had brand new colouring. I was tempted, but I looked. I think it was on a Neiman condition where they did an overview of it. But I agree with what they said on there. Where I love the old colouring. It just added something to it. The garishness of it just kind of like helped convey the weirdness of the story. I mean, this artwork is just stunning. I've never seen artwork like this before. I mean, I'm a die-hard 2000 AD fan, so I had 2000 AD when it first came out. So I kind of collected it, stopped it, collected it, stopped it. And of course, a lot of the artists on there were of this kind of quality, like Brian Bolland, Mick Mann, and Brendan McCarthy, and people like that. So I was used to detailed artwork, but this, I've never seen such beautiful artwork for a horror story. But yeah, this panel here is just amazing. The Floronic Man just became such a great character. Like I said, from a character that normally was overlooked by a lot of other people. He was just a bit of a jokey character before, but definitely wasn't in this. Let me look at that. But yeah, this. So basically, Alan Moore. Because some stories, like for example, James Robinson's Starman, it takes a few issues to get the rhythm, to get the lore and the background of the characters. See, and it's like when you're watching the X-Files or any like cult TV series. It takes you a few episodes to actually get it, and then you get it, and then you really enjoy the series. But with this, from about halfway through the first issue, so definitely on the second issue, the anatomy lesson, that clinches it for you, and you become addicted. But like I said, the artwork is just gorgeous. But yeah, the just when this story ends in a way you don't expect. It goes in areas you don't expect it to, and I love how that's just beautiful. I love how he incorporates classic DC characters as well, like the Justice League, but the artwork makes them look, which is a trope that Alan Moore loves doing with superheroes, is that they're not human gods, and this definitely conveys the otherworldly aspects of the Justice League. And unless this was around the time of Crisis just about to start, and they're treated more like just as gods looking down on the mere mortals from the heavens, because they're in the Justice League watchtower. So they kind of basically leave it to Swamp Thing to fight the battles. And this was just so nice. Again, so it goes from deep horror to something beautiful in this matter of pages. And there we go. Another character that was overlooked until Alan Moore breathed new life into him, Jason Blood, aka the Demon, one of Jack Kirby's finest creations, who was not used to his full potential until Alan Moore came along and revamped them again. I mean, just look at that. That is so sinister. Very H.P. Lovecraft without the racism, of course. Because that's one thing. Alan Moore is like the polar opposite of H.P. Lovecraft. He brings horror from a very much a socialist perspective, a bit like Clive Barker. You know, just so yeah. So that was that's the main chunk of this book is the Floronic Man storyline. But I don't want to give it too much away. Just want to give you like a look of the artwork, and then this is like the repercussions afterwards. And so you have Jason Blood, who is actually, begs the question is who's in control, the man or the demon? So that's the end of book 1, and then we go on to book 2. Just move that away. Gorgeous art for the cover yet again. And this has, I think it's an introduction on this one. Have a look. Yeah, this one has an introduction by Jamie Delano, and very fitting because Jamie Delano took the reins of Hellblazer, of John Constantine, which was a character created by Alan Moore, who was like I mean, he wasn't even loosely, he was a blatant Sting clone, but an occult Sting, basically, you know, Sting from the Police, and it's got a really good forward by Neil Gaiman, and it's lovely seeing Neil Gaiman just being such a fanboy and gushing over this. And the first issue in this one, it's a change in art, complete change in art, and it's Sean McManus doing the artwork. He's got such a lovely, clean, almost like he's like Wrightson meets Disney, if that makes sense. He's such a lovely artist, one of my favourite artists, very underused nowadays. I loved his Doctor Fate series he did with James DeMatteis. But yeah, this is basically Swamp Thing burying the past, or burying his old past, and facing ghosts that tie in with it. Really, really effective story. Retells the original Swamp Thing origin, but from a new perspective, from the new status quo that's been put in place. So from there, it's a ghost story, but like a big sense of whimsy to it as well. And then the story is so chilling. This artwork by Bissett and Tospin, absolutely gorgeous. And this is where they delve into Abby's partner stroke husband Matthew descent into madness, but he's sinister, but you don't really feel anger towards him. He's kind of like a helpless victim himself. So he's being possessed by forces out of his control, and this story, oh my god. I know people rave about that storyline in the one that was on, the one in the first few issues of Sandman, where there's that serial killer convention. To me, this is like the form of this. This is so disturbing. It shows less, but it conveys more in my mind. Where they bring back ghosts and give them flesh of people who shouldn't come back because they're so evil. But yeah, absolutely fantastic, and again the artwork is amazing. I don't want to give too much away. Alfredo Akela comes on with the ink in here, gives you a different texture completely, more like the old school Warren comics of this, but it fits this descent into hell and madness, basically hell on earth. It's such a joy. I've read this story so many times, but I find new bits, even now looking through it, I find new bits in the artwork. And then something drastic happens that just upends Swamp Thing's life. He realises how much he loves Abby with this one. And this is what I love about Swamp Thing. It's more like a long-running, developing love story, where against all the odds, he literally goes to hell and back for her. And again, it's got ties into he does. I love how Alan Moore links its crisis, but in such a way where it doesn't impact the story too much. very, very clever. And it's just great how they have little segues. This story coming up after this one. Oh no, it's not after this one, is it? Oh no, it's the annual first. This time it finishes off the storyline with Abby. Like I said, he literally goes to hell for her, and you see familiar characters like Dead Man and the Phantom Stranger. But again, I'll just skim over it because I don't want to give away plot details because you really do need to read this. But then the next story is one of my favourites, is Pog. And this is a tribute to Walt Kelly and Pogo. Very popular strip. It's like the benchmark for cutesy animal stories. But they always had like a social commentary as well. Without Pog, there'd be no like Berkeley Breathed or even Bone. So yeah, this is such a gorgeous story. And again, Sean McMahon is perfect artist for it. And I love how he gives the little aliens their own language, but so you basically it's quite a long, hard one to read. I love that, how the contrast of Swamp Thing and these little cute aliens. There used to be an English person, I think it was like he did like a few records and things where he invented his own like gobbledygook, where it was like a jumble of English words, but like creating new words, but you understood what it meant, and that's kind of like the process what he's used with this. Very, 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 very good storyline. Excellent story, and again, tinged with sadness at the same time. It's like hope and sadness all in one story. But I don't, again, just flick through. Great cover there. People always have comic crushes when they're growing up. Mine was definitely Abby Arcane. She was like, I just thought she was the most beautiful character in comics. That ethereal, haunted, angsty kind of woman. But this story, pardon me, this story features Cain and Abel from the House of Secrets and House of Mystery, and this is like a framing device with artwork by Alfredo Akela, framing device to represent the original Swamp Thing story, which appeared in House of Secrets, was it, a House of Mystery, one of those anyway, which was Bernie Wrightson and Len Wein. So a very clever framing device, but we'll skim over that because it's not essential. And then this one is basically a Talking Heads, 22 pages, 24 pages of Talking Heads between Swamp Thing and Abby, where they're just declaring how they feel for each other. And Swamp Thing's basically saying, are you sure that you have feelings for me? Because how will I satisfy you? And they find a way, and it's a very unique way. It's a very trippy, hallucinogenic way of consummating their love for each other, and it's well worth reading. It's just amazing. So that's the final story for that one. I'm going to move on quickly. I won't go in depth with some of them because I want to try and keep this video under half an hour. So this is book 3. Again, great cover. And this one has an introduction by Stephen Bissett. Very fitting, as he's one of the prime artists on here. Oh, this story. Saying I won't go in depth. This story is a landmark story as well. Nuke Face. Nothing more. You can have your demons and devils and whatnot, but nothing's more fearsome and horrific than what man can do. So this basically is a comment on nuclear warfare, damage to the environment, man's inhumanity against man, pollution, you name it. And it's very, again, it's chilling but funny in places as well. I mean, that is just so grim. It's awful. But yeah, another fantastic story. I've not got a favourite Swamp Thing story because I find bits to enjoy from most of them. It's awful flicking through this because I want to read it all again. But then after that, yeah, so it's two parts of that one. But I don't want to go into it because you need to read it. But that's a great panel. And then we get this. I think is when the mythology of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing really kicks into gear, because hey, look who's there! John Constantine. Like I said, basically, Alan Moore giving Sting occultic powers. I know people go on about Garth Ennis doing a brilliant run on Hellblaze, but for me, it was always be Jamie Delano, because he was friends with Alan Moore, and he basically he got what John Constantine should be. I think Garth Ennis did up to a point, but Garth Ennis has a different viewpoints, and it didn't feel like my Constantine, if that makes sense. And I love that that face of that nun is amazing. But yeah, he's a complete. John Constantine's a bastard from the start. He's not he's dislikable but likable at the same time. He is the ultimate rogue, and Alan Moore just lays out the blueprint straight away. And the trench coat. I mean, that's one of the few characters whose image has never changed. But oh my goodness, that gave me nightmares as a kid. That just chilling. This storyline is so good. I mean, that cover. That I used to think, hold on, isn't that the villain from the X-Men? You know, that psychic vampire from the X-Men? Well, of course it's not. But yeah, and undersea vampires, of course. Just absolute brilliance, and yeah, Constantine, the OG Constantine, absolutely superb. But yeah, this was a great storyline. Good old school horror as well. I love how he just managed to make things new but old at the same time. Absolutely great. And this actually could be, if you had to choose one to start, might be this one. What's it called? Is it the Curse? A nice feminist reinvention of the werewolf story. I think this went over a lot of comic readers' heads back when it was first released. I mean, now, not so much, because thankfully it's a wider reader demographic now. So you've not just got your neckbeards reading in the mum's basements, you've got men, women, trans reading it, and this story is very much female-centric, as it should be, and it's just great. It just shows the ignorance of man and toxic masculinity as well, but in a good, interesting way, not in a preachy way. Just, it adds to the story. It's just a classic story, but I won't go into it too much. Like I said, it just reinvents the werewolf. I think this is a bit of a voodoo one. Yep, Southern Change, so you've got a nice bit of Southern Gothic here. And that face, I tell you, this artwork, I don't know who I like most. I love Bissett and Totterman on the comic, but I also love Alcala when he inks. And this works so much on the Southern one, because I don't know if Totterman's inks would work on this one as much. This just gives it that added Gothic feel. So yeah, this is basically Alan Moore's tribute to old Southern noir horrors, voodoo, you name it. It's just great. There you go. The only thing I could compare it to was it The Serpent and the Rainbow, that Wes Craven voodoo film. It's got that same kind of feel, which is one of my favourite horror movies of all time. And then there's book 4. I love that image of Swamp Thing with like the headdress. And this is when he starts making Chester, one of the best characters ever in comics, the original hippie everyman. such a sweet character, really, really nice character. He's basically Cheech and Chong rolled into one, but with such a nice personality and heart. I love him. He's my favourite character. So this is basically just introducing Chester. The whole issue devoted to him. No Swamp Thing. I mean, to get away with doing that, especially in the 80s, was unheard of. You normally had to have the main character front and centre. This cover, iconic. And this is Bogeyman. So again, deals with classic tropes. Oh, fantastic. So you get John Constantine and Batman. I love how Alan Moore handles Batman. It's a shame he's not done more, apart from appearances in Swamp Thing. And, of course, The Killing Joke. He might, if he has done more, then let me know. But that's all I can think of. And then you get your old horrific twist on a western, kind of modern day western. Just gorgeous. This was what, when I was a kid, this was one of my favourites because I was a huge Justice League fan. So to see them interacting with Swamp Thing was just a match made in heaven for me. Nowadays, I'm like, ugh, but I'm a bit more of a snob now, but I still get fun from this issue. And again, Alan Moore, he loves superheroes, so he never did a disservice to them. He treated them respectfully, but managed to tie them in to the story he was trying to convey at the same time. I just love the face they give this nun. She is amazing. This was what a lot of new series of Swamp Thing have cribbed from, Parliament of the Trees. So this really cements how there's more than just the Swamp Thing. You know, there's the Parliament of the Trees, and you've got Parliament of the Elements, fire, etc. And Return of that character who terrifies me still to this day. This opening page is just amazing. The use of light and shadows, so you get the crows. It becomes darkness. And then just the striking of the match. And there he appears, Constantine, the coolest mofo in the world. And oh my god, that panel is gold. That is just gold. But yeah. This deals with a new area of the supernatural. This is more like your South American take on it. So I'm sure he must have binged on a lot of like the old Cannibal Holocaust and things like that. Video nasties, because it's got that same kind of flavour. Oh, who's that? Oh, I've forgotten his name. Zoltan, is it? I can't remember. This guy with the headdress. But I'd love for Marvel, DC, sorry, to do not Justice League Dark, but a supernatural comic featuring these heavy hitters. It'd be so good. And again, I'd love a new demon comic. I mean, this guy I only knew from New Teen Titans at the time, because he was the stepdad of Gar, Beast Boy. And see, Alan Moore was doing it way before Neil Gaiman, using Cain and Abel to full effect. Constantine again. So yeah, another brilliant one. Just 2 more volumes to go. Like I said, we'll just fly through these. Again, another intro by Steve Bissett. This is when it gets... I forgot how many issues Constantine was in. This is Alcala inking again. Very much a comic of its time, with some of the... It just had that grit and grind.